Thanks for the introduction. Great to be here, and really, really excited to be back in Singapore. As Jeremiah said, my name is Jason Averbook, and I've had the opportunity to speak in Singapore so many times, and it seems like every time I get the chance to speak here, I'm at the end. I don't know what that means. You know what it means? I went out there to get a coffee, and all I could find was what? A beer. But I didn't have it. But just so you know, there's plenty of beer and there's plenty of desserts out there. So great to be with you guys today. And what I want to do for the next 90 minutes, who's laughing like that? The next 30 minutes is talk about this world of AI. How many times have you heard the word AI today? Pretty much every time? Well, guess what? It's not even a word. It's 2 letters. But yet it's something that everyone's talking about today. And it's something that at Mercer, when we work with global clients like yourselves, people ask us, what are we going to do about AI? What should we think about when it comes to AI? What does it mean to me? And what I want to do over this next period of time is talk a little about it. But I don't want to talk about it in the form of technology. There'll be a little tech for those of you techies, but I want to talk about the form of AI and how it impacts people and what it means to us in order to, what I like to say is the R word. Does anyone know the R word? Okay, I'm going to take 3 guesses. The R word. Resolute? No. I'm sorry? Resilient? No. Real? No. Does anyone know the F word? No, just kidding. Relevant. Relevant. How do we think about relevance going forward? Now, the way I like to start all the sessions that I ever give in my whole life is to talk about the impact of what I like to think of as digital versus technology. Digital is a mindset. Technology is a bunch of code, is a bunch of numbers. Does that make sense? Digital is a mindset. Technology is a bunch of code. Now, we forever have struggled to get people connected to technology. How many of you ever have a problem getting connected to technology? Like Wi-Fi? How many of you still have modems? You don't, I'm kidding. But we used to struggle mightily to get people connected, right? How many of you have problems getting people to use your HR technology? Anyone? That's not true. Raise your hand if you have problems getting people to use your HR technology. Okay, that's like 90%. Okay? Now, that means, are they having a problem getting connected? Or are they having a problem building connection? Which one is it? Connection. Connected is the art of, hey, I'm connected. Cool. Oh, Zoom, another Zoom call. Teams, another Teams call. Connection is how do I infuse humanity into it to create an experience that might mean someone. How many of you use Microsoft Teams? How many of you, the first thing you do in the morning is say good morning to someone on Microsoft Teams? Why is you, there's no one? Oh my God, it's a good thing you don't work with me. Every morning, like exercise, I try to say good morning to 5 people. You know, and in a company of 85,000 people, it's funny. Some people say good morning, how are you? And some people say, what do you want? And I'm always fascinated. Like, if I walked by you in the morning, what's your name? Oliver. Oliver? Yeah, Oliver. If I walked by you in the morning, I just come walking in and I say, good morning, what do you say? What do you want? Yeah, what's up? He's a cool dude. What's up? Right? I wouldn't say, what do you want? But yet on technology, a lot of us don't say good morning. A lot of us don't say hi. A lot of us don't build that connection. And if we carry that forward to the world we live in today, a lot of us don't build that thinking into when we deploy applications or capabilities to people. Did you hear what I said? Deploy applications or capabilities to people. And guess what? We don't even call them people. What do we call them? Oliver, you're a user. Hey, Oliver, good to see you, user. How many of you want to be called users your whole life? It's not necessarily the most positive thing. So when we think about digital, it's so important to think about connected versus connection. Our job into 2025 is what? To rethink how do we reshape HR to do what? To reshape work. Now, why do I say reshape work? Because automated intelligence, artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, whatever you'd like to call it, is going to change every job in the world. That is not some dumb prediction. Raise your hand if AI has already changed your job. Just a little tiny bit. Just made you a 1 bit smarter, 1 bit dumber, 1 bit sexier, 1 bit uglier. How many of you took a photo in the AI thing out there? You're like, oh, I look so great. It changed your life somehow, right? It's changing work. Did these phones change work? Did fax machines change work? Did business cards change work? Did mice change work? Did hammers change how people built stuff? Did vacuum cleaners change how people clean their house? All technology changes things. So what's our job in HR? Our job in HR is to think about how do we evolve ourselves to what? Help change the workforce. Okay, but to do that, we have to think about A, are we effective as an HR function? And then B, wow, good running, Igor. Are we digital? Igor was my partner this morning. Are we digital? Does that make sense? Are we effective? And then are we digital? By the way, at the end, there goes Igor. I said one thing, and he's gone. At the end of this, you'll get these slides, so you don't have, I appreciate everyone taking a picture of me, but you don't have to. You'll get the slides. But are we effective and are we digital? And what does it mean when we think about what's the next evolution of HR? The next evolution of HR, which we should actually call the now evolution of HR, means that we're innovative, we're evolving, we're ready for the future, we're disruptive, and we're anticipating what's going to happen tomorrow. Those 5 things. Raise your hand if you say, we as an HR function have these mastered. Raise your hand if you as a function have these mastered. Raise your hand if you give yourself a 3 out of 5 on these. Okay, so far no one's raised their hand for anything I've said. Raise your hand if you like beer. Okay, thank God you're alive. No, but when we think about these things, we have to have this in our DNA. We have to have this in the function of what we do. And what those things describe is us being digital. Us being digital. And when we think about why we're digital because things change. Now, when we say things change, one of my colleagues I'm lucky enough to work with, Jess Von Bank, in the front row here, we did a workshop yesterday, and someone said, oh my God, our employees have change fatigue. Have you ever heard of that? Change fatigue. Oh my gosh, our people have change fatigue. What is change fatigue? How many of you have change fatigue? Raise your hand. Okay, leave. No, just kidding. The world changes every single day. Does that make sense? The world changes every single day. I'm from the United States of America. My colleague Jess Von Vank's from the United States of America. We left the United States of America on Friday. When we landed here, our former president was attempted to be assassinated. It's not funny, but all that being said, things change. Now, some of you have seen that story, right? It's amazing how fast things move in today's fast-changing world. But imagine what would have happened if a bullet went one way or another. Things change. We have wars. We have new technology. We have new innovations. We have new rules. We have new judges. We have new global issues. All of that being said, we have to fall in love. Oh, beautiful. With change. I didn't say it, she said it. How many of you love change? Raise your hand. Like you wake up in the morning, you're like, I hope things frickin' change today. No, just raise your hand. Not just to change, but you're like intrigued. Sorry. You're intrigued by change. Like I've loved change my whole life. I don't know why. Sorry. I've loved change my whole life. And all of that being said, the reason that we're digital is to help drive change. To help drive change, our mindset has to be such that change is the strategy, not the enemy. Okay? Let's say I've been an amazing sales executive for 96 quarters. 96 quarters. For those of you that want to do math, that's 24 years. It's a long time. But guess what? Do you know how salespeople used to keep track of their sales 24 years ago? On rocks. No, on pieces of paper, on notebooks. Guess what? How do people keep track of sales now? In customer relationship management tools. Right? Does that change the sales job? Yes. The ones that changed survived. Like there's some old people in this room that have been selling for 96 quarters. Okay? There's other people who not died off, but couldn't survive because they quote unquote couldn't change. So when we think about the concept of digital, it's really important to keep in mind that digital does not equal technology. And I beg you, if you take nothing else from this session, you take this simple diagram, if you want to call it a diagram. Digital doesn't equal technology. Every HR department has to be digital. As part of being digital, we may use technology to push us forward. And what that equation looks like is this. We have to have an aligned mindset. We stop doing some of the old stuff we used to do, like say, hey, guess what? We're going to go live. How many of you have ever gone to a go live party? Raise your hand if you've been to a go live party. Dumbest things in the world. Okay, the reason I say they're the dumbest things in the world is because what do? You go live and you're like, okay, on to the next thing. They should be called go begin parties. You start to begin to see value. I need to make sure that my HR technology is designed for who? The people that I want to use it. When I say HR technology, what does that mean? Technology for who? HR. So I put a bunch of HR technology out to a bunch of users like Oliver who don't know how to spell HR, and what do? Abandon. Like, I don't know what an effective date is. I don't know what a job code is. I don't know what a blah, blah, blah is. Why would I? Why should I? I don't want to know that. When I type in on a portal, I'm having a baby. And it can't find anything, but I have to type in I'm having a dependent, and all of a sudden it finds something? Is that stupid? How many of you have had babies? Raise your hand. How many of you, when you had to tell someone you were having a baby, you're like, hey, guess what? I'm having a dependent. You never said that, right? We're speaking HR, not human. So the second component of this being digital is speaking human. The third component is realizing that people love working in journeys, not processes. We in HR oftentimes love processes. Employees, managers, leaders love working through a journey. By the way, how many of you ever buy anything on Amazon? Okay. How many of you ever buy anything online? Okay. How many of you are in procurement? You're all in procurement if you buy something online. Does that make sense? But why does it not feel like you're in procurement? Because it was designed for who? You, not for the procurement function. And once I think through that, then I can say, what's the right technology to bring that to life? But oftentimes, where do I start? Tech. I'm like, I have an idea. Let's go live as fast as we can. Minimum viable product. I don't really care if it burns down bridges, but we're going to go live. And then all of a sudden, no one uses it. They say, that's not what I saw in the demo. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, time for an RFP. Has anyone ever been through that? That is the common thing that happens in HR technology because we start here instead of starting with what are our measures of success. What do you want your outcome to be? If you say your measure of success is go live, cool. But then that's your measure of success. So think about how many times you've heard AI today, which is here. What's your measure of success of AI? You don't know the answer to that. I don't believe. Because I don't know the answer to that. We are all living in a movie right now where we're all determining together what these measures of success are going to be. To do this, we have to realize that as part of change in AI, there's two types of change. Something called changefulness and something called change management. Changefulness means I'm opening my mind to change. Change management is a process to get something to stick. If I don't trust AI, and all of a sudden I say to Oliver, here's a training class on AI, does it matter? No, because he doesn't trust it. If I don't trust HR, and all of a sudden there's someone in HR, hey, guess what? I've got this really cool new app. It's called My HR. Why are you laughing? I hate HR. How many of you love, you're all in HR. How many of your employees love getting emails from your HR department? They're like, oh, I hope I get an email from HR today. Oh, I have a brilliant idea. Let's create an app and call it My HR. And hope that everyone uses it. Okay, so when we think about that, we have to think about how do we build trust and then think about how do we push that forward. So we're shifting from doing tech projects to being digital, and we do that, and we have to make sure we do it in the form of a loop. It starts with what's our strategy. It then leads to how do we activate the organization to be ready for our strategy. How do we deploy our strategy, which might just include some tech? And then lastly, how do we focus on betterment? It's a loop, it's not a stop and start. Does that make sense? And in the AI world, which I'm about to talk about, if you do start and stop, you're dead. Why? Because AI learns every day. So if you say, hey, we're going to go live with AI, but then we're not going to touch it for 6 months, when you come back to it, it's going to be a disaster. So if you don't have this organizational muscle, well, I don't have much of a muscle there, but if you don't have the organizational muscle to think this way, you have to build it in order to be successful. The goal of AI is to amplify people. You've heard that throughout the day today from many people. It's not replacing people, it's amplifying people. Okay? Now, you heard a bunch of people up here earlier say, the people that are going to lose their jobs are the people that don't know AI. How many of you loved that comment? Anyone? Nothing against the people that said it. The same thing was said of calculators. The same thing was said of fax machines. The same thing was said of everything that was technology. Electric screwdriver versus manual screwdriver, right? It's all about how do we continue to evolve. When we think about AI right now, we're at a moment in time that I hope, to goodness sake, that you are so proud to be alive. How many of you feel this way? Like you're like, I cannot believe that I am going through this moment in time. There's one dude in the back of the room. Okay, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of the presentation. Okay, you see this slide right here. This is me. That is my QR code. That leads to my LinkedIn. I would highly encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn, not because I want more followers, not because I want you to be connected, but I want you to not miss this moment in time. I have been doing this for 30 years. There has never been a technology that's been as innovative, as promising, and influential to HR as what we're experiencing right now. Hands down, game over. So if you don't feel lucky to be alive, if you don't feel lucky to be part of this, I highly encourage you to start to think about what does it mean and learn about it. So when I say that, we're living in a printing press moment where we're talking about human and machine teaming. Now, that looks fancy. It's not fancy, right? It's how do humans and machines work together. We have partners. We have an assistant. We have people that we can work with to do our jobs better. Is that good or bad? It's good. Why is it good? It's good because if you look at this chart, what's going to happen, look at the far right, is the amount of transactional work that we're going to have to do is going to be minimized so that I don't have to do as much transactional work and I get to do more relationship work and expertise work. That's cool. Like, how many of you want to argue with it? Say, nope, I'm done. I want more transactional work. I want more boring work that's not rich, that's very mundane, that drives me crazy. None of you would say, I hope none of you would say that. You want work that's more rich, that's rewarding. This was a slide I presented at the World Economic Forum in Davos in March. And by the way, it says 2027. That number is 2026. This is the exact slide I presented in March. I would change it right now to 2026. That is the OOM we're dealing with. Does everyone know OOM? Order of magnitude. The order of magnitude that these tools are getting better is amazing. So for those of you that are used to doing a release every 18 months, every 3 years, I was with a company earlier this week that said it takes us 6 years to do something. If it takes you 6 years to do something, by the time you do it, it's going to be dumb. It's not going to be worth doing. So we have to get better at speeding up. Really what we're doing, if we want to simplify this, is this. We're eliminating hands work so that we can do more heads work and hearts work. Does that make sense? Eliminating the hands work. Hands work that we call RAD, repeatable, auditable, and documented. Now, this is where we as humans have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves a question. Who's better at doing repeatable, auditable, and documented work that's boring and mundane? Humans or machines? Are you okay with that? Is everyone in your company okay with that? Are all of your employees okay with that? A lot of it might be what they think is their job today. Does that make sense? So we have to rethink, what does that mean? But what it's done is it's created this moment of what I like to think of as FOBO, fear of becoming obsolete. Okay, not FOMO, FOBO, fear of becoming obsolete. We're worried about that. What do we do to stay relevant? These 4 things. Learn, embrace adaptability, advance your emotional intelligence, and develop digital literacy. Lead. If you can bring this back and say, this is how we stay relevant, you and the machine are going to live together in matrimony. If you try to fight it and say, you know what, it's just media hype, it's not going to work, we'll wait for the government to put in regulations, every possible excuse under the sun, you're going to struggle. Now, really quickly, you've heard today, and I do this presentation for a lot of organizations worldwide every single day of my life. And if you ever want us to do it, I'm happy to do it for you. There have been 4 generations of AI. I'm going to go through this really quickly because Esther is over there and she's going to tell me I'm done and I'm not going to get to finish. So I'm going to go through it quick. The first one is rules-based AI. How many of, well, actually, before we do that, how many of you use AI every day? Okay, there's about 8% of the room that raised their hand. Did you just look back? Were you shocked? You said you use AI every day, right? Every single one of you use AI every day. Please, actually, everyone, at the count of 3, say, I use AI. 1, 2, 3. Louder. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you all use AI. How do you use AI? Do you know what spell check is? AI. Have you ever used a phone tree where you press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, press 3 to do this? You press 2 and all of a sudden it sends you somewhere? What's that? AI. Have you ever raised your hand on a Zoom call or a Teams call or shot off the cool little fireworks? That's all AI. Does that make sense? It's rules-based. It took coding. It's not smart. But what did it do? Automate something that was used to be manual. Because to raise your hand before, what did you have to do? Either raise your hand or write some code to do it. Inside of HR, timesheets. How many of you ever deal with timesheets? On paper. Raise your hand if you deal with paper timesheets. Okay, one person. She needs a beer. Okay, but think about a timesheet. When a timesheet automatically says I work 42 hours and I get 40 hours of regular and 2 hours of overtime, and the system does that automatically, guess what? That's AI. Does that make sense? We all use AI. Machine learning. What does machine learning do? It takes it to the next level. Okay, people that enroll in this benefit also enroll in this benefit. I was talking with Julie earlier. She's trying to get an online tool that allows you to enroll in benefits based on who you are. That's amazing. That's machine learning, the machine learning who you are. I enroll in this training class, I should also take this training class. Anyone ever buy anything online? Anyone? What's the last thing you bought online? A pillow. I don't even want to ask any questions, but a pillow. People that bought a pillow also bought what? I'll just let you use your imagination. Okay? That's machine learning. Okay, any of you use dating apps? Of course, no one's going to raise their hand. Are there no dating apps in Singapore? Just everyone's shy. How many of you ever use Facebook? LinkedIn, where it recommends someone. That's machine learning. Does that make sense? Of course, no one dates here. Deep learning. How do I connect more data together? So I say I'm going from point A to point B on Google Maps. All of a sudden, guess what? A restaurant shows up on the left, a gas station on the right. Why? Adding more data. And then the 4th generation of AI, which is what everyone's talking about today. So when people say, HR needs to start using AI, I want you to go back and say, we're already using AI. What are you talking about? And then say, are you talking about generative AI? Because if you're talking about generative AI is the first form of AI that ever can create content versus classify content. For those of you coming to my workshop tomorrow, you'll learn all about this and do it. It's the first form of AI that's ever been able to learn versus just leverage. And it's the first form of AI that does this. Instead of you learning how to use a machine, the machine learns how to work with you. Does that make sense? Instead of you ever, so in 12 months from now, none of you will ever go through training on how to use an application in business ever again. Why? Because all you'll do is say what you want, and the machine will do it. If it's talking to 2 apps, 7 apps, 15 apps, et cetera, et cetera. So all of you that are saying, I love my user interface in my HR system, guess what? You're not going to use it. You're going to use a prompt or you're going to use your voice. Does that make sense? And guess what? That's how humans work. That's what makes humans excited about what they do. This technology is getting so much better, so fast, that if you look at this, Chat 3.5, GPT, everyone knows what a GPT is, right? Every time I ask this question, I say, everyone knows what a GPT is. You know what someone says? Chat GPT? That's not the right answer. GPT is a generative, pre-trained transformer. Please don't start saying that. People will think you're weird. But that's what it is. It's pre-trained to be able to be smart. Look at how much smarter it's gotten. And some of you have heard of ChatGPT 4.0. 4.0, all of the numbers are 95 and above. So look at how much smarter it's gotten. And what's happening right now is this. Does everyone know BYOD? What's that? Bring your own device, bring your own drink. BYOB, bring your own beer. Bring your own AI. We all have AI right here. The number of companies we work with that say, hey, Jason, this is really good stuff, but guess what? We're blocking it. You're not blocking anything. It's right here. If I have my HR data and I take a picture of it on my phone with ChatGPT or Claude, and I say, tell me what this says, all of your data is in the public cloud. Does that make sense? Does that scare you? It should. Do you block people from bringing their device to work? No. You should tell them what they're doing with it. That's why the education is so important. ChatGPT 4.0 is the first form of AI that can see, hear, and speak at the same time. What's the only other thing in life that can see, hear, and speak at the same time? Humans. Fascinating to think about. Apple Intelligence. Anyone that has an Apple device at the end of July will have AI on their phone. And you'll use it every single day. Automatically. How many of you by the end of July are you going to have your entire HR department using AI to be more productive? Congratulations. One person. She doesn't need a beer. Well, she might. But all that being said, that's our challenge, because guess what? It's 2024 outside of work. What year does it feel like inside of work? Does that make sense? When Gen Z says, we're doing this outside of work, and you're like, we're blocking it. And there's reasons to block it. But there's also reasons to understand it. So I highly encourage you in closing to think about AI with these 3 steps. These 3 steps. The first step is, as soon as humanly possible, make sure that everyone in the HR organization understands the AI at the level that I just described it to you. Does that make sense? Now, it says, please don't say, oh my God, it's too much work. How long did I have? I'm over time, but literally I did it in about 15 minutes. Okay, do you feel like you learned something about AI in the last 15 minutes? Okay, education is key. The second component is start to experiment. Now, when I say experiment, what this means is think of one thing you do at work, in your day-to-day job, and say, could generative AI help it? If you're creating a training class, could generative AI help? Goodness, yes. If you're creating a communication, could generative AI help? Goodness, yes. If you're creating a job requisition, could generative AI help? Goodness, yes. If you're trying to write your resignation letter to your CHRO because you just came to a conference and you're like, we're so far behind, we're never going to catch up. Don't do that. I was just kidding. But guess what? Generative AI could help. Okay, but there's a really important concept to keep in mind here, and it's called human in the loop. Does that make sense? Think about it. Human in the loop. All of these tools give us amazing insight. They give us amazing information. But guess what? We shouldn't just trust them. We should look at it, add our nuance to it, add our context to it. Remember the hands, heads, and hearts? AI is doing the hands work so that what can we do? more advanced heads work, and more advanced hearts work. Once we do these two things, then we can think about how to enable it throughout the entire organization. Generative AI has changed the world of HR technology forever. You will never buy applications the same. Okay, all of you who say, oh, guess what? Because my neighbor bought this one, this is what I should buy. We're going to flock with them. Hey, guess what? Because they bought Workday, I should buy Workday. Because they bought SuccessFactors, I should buy SuccessFactors. That is so broken. What's so important for you to do is think about what is your signature as a company. What are the use cases, not just of AI, but what are the workflows that are going to give you a competitive advantage? And then think about how do you enable that. So instead of ripping down your whole house, could you use a fresh coat of paint? Instead of saying it's going to take 3 years to replace this, could you have something live in 2 weeks? Yes, yes, yes. So please, please, please take that opportunity to think different. This presentation that I just gave is really short. Some of you are ready to go have beer, so you don't think it's short. But it's really short. If you click on that QR code or take a picture of that QR code, it'll take you to a form where you can get this presentation. I only ask one thing of you when you go to that form. There's one mystery question. It's not, don't worry, I'm not trying to understand what your kids' names are or what you like to eat. It's, did you learn one thing? You could say OOM. By the way, how many of you know what an OSM is? Anyone? Oh shit moment. What's the first thing you thought of when you saw ChatGPT? Anyone? The first time you ever saw something in ChatGPT. One word to describe your feeling. Scary? Interesting? What else? I'm sorry? Sorry? Curious? Oh, curious. Sorry. What other words? Intelligent. What else? Revolutionary. What? Good word, right? Whoa. What else? How many of you said, no big deal? What an OSM is a moment we live through in time where all of a sudden we say to ourselves, this is going to change work. This is going to change life. And that's where we are today. So when you get this presentation, there's a whole bunch of resources that we've provided here. White papers, blue papers, green papers, red papers, 99 pages, 180 pages. Don't read them. Put them into ChatGPT and summarize them for you. Okay? No, seriously, use them. Use them. And at the same time as you're doing that, please, these links on this page here are everything that we do to try to keep the community up to date. I'm going to, in a second, introduce the master community builder in the world that I learned more from than anyone else in life. But what we're trying to do is build communities. So forums on HR technology and Gen AI, thank you for coming, sir. A podcast that we do every week. A podcast about work we do every other week. And finally, a live show we do every week. And one of the things that we're doing is changing the by the way, I really appreciate all of you that came up to me and said, I wish you did it in my time zone, not in the US time zone. So we're working on that and promise you some good things coming there. So I really, really thank you for your time. I hope this was helpful. I hope you walked away with one thing that you can go home and say, you work in the most exciting industry in the world. You work in the industry at the most exciting time in the world. And most importantly, it's one of the best times ever to be a human. Thank you so much.